Welcome to Into the Blue, presented by Penelope Bourbon, a weekly look behind the scenes of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Into the Blue, presented by our good friends at Penelope Bourbon. And we are getting ready, Julie, for a long trip out west. First off, how was the travel? I feel like this is the first time you guys have had like a 2-day break where maybe you can actually catch your breath here a little bit.
Yes, well, Ben, great to talk to you from the other side of the continent right now. It is, I honestly forgot how long the journey would be from Tampa to Seattle, and it was a 6-hour flight yesterday, which I was like, wow, we could fly to Europe really at this point, which probably would be a lot more enjoyable. But as we are here in Seattle, I'm looking out here. I got a great view of, whatever I'm looking at right now, and I can see the mountains, whatever mountains those are here. Not a geography major of the Pacific Northwest, but this is just for engagement right now, just so people are typing in. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting because as much as we, it's been like game, day off, game, and it's been go, go, go. It did kind of feel that way too, because like right after the game on Saturday night, I had to like start packing for the next day. And you're like, okay, but then you do have, like we got here yesterday, and then today I'll go to practice right after this, and then kind of have a chance to like maybe have dinner with like our TV crew, or just kind of have those moments where when you're in this go, go, go season. I talked to Brian Engblom about it last night when we were just walking down the street. I'm like, man, I forgot how challenging doing this job is on your body, like how taxing it is, because you're going different time zones. You have so many different games as a broadcaster. Like I'm not even talking about as a player, but as a broadcaster, and you're packing, you're unpacking, there's not even 1 second to kind of take a breath, really. And then add in the Olympics. I told them I was like Weekend at Bernie's. That's how I felt, which is a very old school reference there, where you're just whatever. So, but you're also it's really exciting too, because like when you don't have those moments to kind of get like okay, so we had the break, right? And like everyone kind of does something during that, but then now it's just like go, go, go. So it's kind of exciting in that sense, where it's like you don't have too much time to take your eye off the ball, and you've got to just like, it's almost like you're sprinting a marathon, and which is not ideal, but like it's exciting in that sense. So it's nice to kind of have a little bit of a breath of fresh air, literally, because it's like so beautiful out here. But also, I'm really sad I'm not in the warm Tampa weather that everyone keeps asking me about. They're like, how's Tampa? I'm like, I don't know. I'm there like 3 days every 2 weeks. So, good chance for the guys to bond, get together on the road, and figure this thing out.
Yeah, when you said go, 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 and that's exactly what's going to happen this week, right? You mentioned Seattle. The Lightning will play in Seattle on Tuesday night to kick off this 4-game road trip, same thing, right?
Road stand, yeah.
Road stand, we'll take that.
Home stand or road stands?
Let's add that to the dictionary, the old road stand. Perfect. Sounds like maybe they sell corn on the cob kind of thing in the Midwest.
Yeah, the road stand.
The strawberry stand, yes. But they'll kick it off on Tuesday against Seattle, and that is a team in the final wild card spot right now in the West. They'll go to Vancouver on Thursday, a team that's kind of flailing this year, which is pretty insane when you look at the talent. But obviously this year they did deal Quinn Hughes. So it's a much different roster even than September and October. And then they're going to finish it up with the Battle of Alberta. Not technically, but right, they go to Edmonton on Saturday, Calgary on Sunday. Edmonton, obviously, a couple of all-world players there. Calgary, again, is in that more rebuild phase, but it seems like maybe they're starting to trend upward. But like, again, even Vancouver, they've got some players that can make you pay if you make the mistakes. We, unfortunately, these last couple of games haven't seen the pace we expect to see from the Lightning. So this road trip, as you said, the guys are going to go out. It's a chance to bond and kind of get back to the game they need to play. To me, they have to be better at defending the rush, because it seems like there's 3-on-1s, 3-on-2s, like 2-on-1s just constantly. And I think part of that is the blind passes, right? It just seems like they're kind of throwing pucks around instead of getting them out of the zone. And at the same time, I'd like to see them get north more, right? We see guys kind of waiting on the far blue line, but I feel like they need to attack with speed as a 5-man unit, something that they were doing really well going into the Olympic break, right? It seemed like every time they had the puck, it was 1 pass, 2 pass out of the zone, and then they were flying down the other way, and the other team didn't know who to defend, really. So to me, that's got to be the biggest difference is the rush both on defense and on offense. I think they have to get back to that style of play because right now it just seems like they're standing still a little bit too much, kind of waiting for the play to come to them instead of driving play. Obviously, you're down by the bench. We talked to the guys. They all have different opinions on what they need to do. But a lot of it, even from the guys, is we have to be better at getting north, right? Move that puck forward instead of side to side.
Yeah, they had exactly to that point. Everyone, it seems as though we talked to, has been like, it's got to be north, got to be north. Even during the game, in the interview I did with Destu, he was saying, we have to go north more in that final period. But I also think, to your point, like it is really amazing. Like the breakdowns defensively, allowing teams to have these 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s on the rush happen early too. It's like I mean,
it was
obviously
1-0 the other night, 38 seconds in, right?
And I was like, oh my God. I was like, ugh, bullet, like, phew. And then you're curious about how, in my mind, I always am like thinking of the story. Like I'm like writing the story in my mind. I'm like, okay, so they got scored on first in the first minute, but then, they got scored on again, right? Like, how do they respond to that? Okay, well, they were able to actually get out of that, which was a nice change since the break, because it feels as though before the Olympic break, they were never out of it. And like, honestly, when I was at the Olympics,
especially against Carolina.
Yeah.
And like every game we've seen them give up multiple goals and then come back to kind of make it a game again.
I'm always like thinking of that gif, like the Undertaker, like there's just like whatever, it doesn't matter what the score is. Tampa's like, here we go, and we're going to win it. And then when I was at the Olympics and I was watching, because obviously it was Team Canada, John Cooper coach team, they're down in a couple different games, but then I'm like, they came back and won it. And I was like, of course they did, because that's what Tampa does. Like I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously. That hasn't been the case right now. And I think that's something that I think at this point starts to become like, okay, like, all right, like we cannot let this slip anymore. We have to be able to figure out what we're doing in the sense of getting back to, like, I know they keep saying the process, the simple things. I know sometimes, like, for instance, the best player on the team, arguably, guys say the best player like in the league, but Nikita Kucherov, he doesn't always like to shoot necessarily. He likes to pass, make a good play. Like it's bigger in his mind about what it kind of looks like. But for overall, they've got to like shoot the puck more, because it feels as though they're just being too cute with it, where you look at the shot totals and they're just not getting as many pucks through. And I think like it felt like they had a good third period in terms of effort the other night. Like there were a lot of blocked shots, or there was like, the save on Hagel. Like there's just moments in the games that I felt like it's kind of like the movie Sliding Doors. And I've said this before, where it's like, it could have gone one way or the other, and then we'd be having a whole different narrative right now. And it's same with how even like the first goal was called like the other night. It's like just these little moments in the game have determined what the outcome is. And unfortunately for the Lightning, that has led to a lot of these regulation losses, but I wouldn't say all of them are equal. However, I would say the starts have been like a theme that have to be better. But then to that point, I love this. I'm just going to like argue again against myself and a point I make. To that point, it's like you want to have a fast start and get out really strong, because you're like, okay, we keep giving up goals. But then, as I think maybe Yanni Gourde might have said the other night, or I forget who it was, but when you do have those fast starts, like you got to be able to make sure that you're not again just like leaving the defensive aspect of your game out to dry, and then you get scored on the rush, right? Like just
can't relax after you take the
one
lead.
turnover here and there, and then boom, right there. And then all these teams you mentioned, I mean, I think Seattle will be a really good test off the hop, because they are a team. Well, they just beat Florida last night. By the way, Florida was just leaving our hotel as we were coming in, and I was like, this is weird. It's like seeing like your ex or something. You're like, oh, hi, I didn't know you were here too. And so that was kind of strange. But the fact that Seattle is definitely like, I mean, they're hungry, right? Like they're on the cusp. That is tight for that
and
Western.
Not a team that scores a lot, right?
Yeah.
But they're very good defensively. So when we just talked about the shots, getting shots on goal, Seattle's a really good defensive team. Again, they don't score. They just don't score a lot of goals.
Although they did against Florida.
True,
6
what was it,
goals.
6, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but they are pretty good at limiting goals against. So the Lightning are going to have to shoot the puck if they want to score on Seattle.
I agree.
But like you look at that trip, and we just talked about that last game, and I think there were a lot of different takeaways. You know, we heard Coop say kind of what you did, right? Maybe one play here, and that game's different, right? Like that Hagel opportunity, that wasn't a save, by the way.
I
By
know.
a goalie, right? Like,
Yeah,
what
that
an
was
insane kick save
defenseman.
by Sean Walker, right? Like,
Yeah.
just an insane. I had watched it like 4 times. Like, there's no way he just made that save. It was insane. And if that goes in, like you said, it's a completely different hockey game, right? All of a sudden, the Lightning are up 3-2 with 10 minutes left in the third, and maybe it's Carolina that has to start pressing. So,
Right.
it is what it is. Unfortunately, on that same night, Julie, and I feel like we could just have this on our podcast outline every week at this point, we did find out some more injury news for the Lightning. Defenseman Declan Carlile will be out for the next 4 to 5 weeks with a lower body injury. Now, we did see him leave. That would have been on Thursday night. We saw him leave the last part of that game in the third period, about midway through. And Coop said, yeah, I'm a little worried about him. I'm going to have to go check it out. And then right after puck drop on Saturday, the Lightning did confirm that it's going to be about a month for Declan Carlile. Made a little bit easier by the return of Eric Chernak on that same night. But another defenseman goes down. I just feel like you couldn't have made up the injuries this year. Like, if you just said, what's the worst injury luck we could have? I think the Lightning have had it so far this year.
Yeah, knock on wood just for that.
Yeah,
because
seriously.
they have had so many injuries with that, and I think it's like, oh gosh, now another defenseman, and then that just sort of shakes up everything with who you're pairing with who, right? Because he's been trying different pairings with different guys, like what works, what doesn't work, and I think that you need some stability to be able to work off of, like, get to understand other guys' tendencies, and especially, like, for instance, the Gord line, like, I'll take it to the forwards, like, they understand innately, and also the first line too, like with Gage and Point and Kucherov, like, they know where each other's going to be, and that's the level you want to be at, where it becomes a habit in the terms of, like, your teammates so well. So when we're hoping, obviously, Zemgus Girgensons is all right, because he did leave in the second period of the last game, and he'd been super effective on that line. And then, of course, with that line scoring, and they've been getting better. They had kind of like a little bit of a slump there in some ways, but they've been a line that knows where everyone is. And I talked to Zemgus about it, and he just said, like, we're just like a line that, like, we're all different, but we all work really hard. And so we know that we bring something different, but at the end of the day, like, we're going to grind. And so when you can rely on your teammates also to be there in the spots that you think they're going to be hustling as much as you are. It's like you're all in this, obviously, together. That's what you want. But, like, then, of course, with the D pairings, to go back to that, if you're switching these up, and I know that these are elite players, they know how to play with other guys, but there is that 1 second here or there that maybe a guy isn't necessarily attuned to a certain player making that decision in that way, that can kind of change the whole composure of the game. And then there you go, you get beat off the rush or something like that. And I do think you're right, spot on the point. Like, at the beginning, it just kind of looks like, just reminded me of me playing hockey and not being able to, like, stop anybody. Just having them fly by me and being like, well, there they go,
Well, yeah. Well, you mentioned Girgensons. Obviously, he's been playing some really good hockey for this team. And again, it just seems like every time you get somebody back, somebody else goes out. Now, the good news for the Lightning, we mentioned Eric Chernak, but we did also see the return of Nick Paul, right? Nick Paul missed 11 games with a lower body injury suffered in the Stadium Series game. And it's Nick Paul's second injury this season, unfortunately. But I thought it was really interesting because, first off, shout out to Eric Erlinson, who everybody in the Lightning fandom base knows very well. But his favorite line, I swear, is Nick Paul does it all. And he does, right? Like, Nick Paul kills penalties. He's on the power play every once in a while. He's really good in the faceoff dot. He's the team's best faceoff guy this season in an area that the Lightning haven't been very good at, quite frankly. And I thought it was really interesting when we asked John Cooper about Nick Paul. He had a great answer as far as what does Nick Paul bring, and it was truly pretty much Nick Paul does it all.
Yeah, he's the I'll figure it out guy is what I asked him. I was like, it's like whatever I'm told to do, I'll do it. And I think that's almost like kind of a young Corey Perry in a way at this point in his career. I mean, like the very different players and very different situations. I mean, playing on the same line, but I think that we have to give also Nick Paul a little bit more of a runway to kind of see where he's at right now after this injury, because, coming back from a second injury this season, he did say, to us that it's helpful because he knows how to just get back in, doesn't have to have as many like conversations, understands the system, communication. And by that regard, like when you know how to come back from an injury before, you can kind of figure out how to do it like again in that sense. But then it's not like everything's the same as it was when you came back before, right? Like everything is just like, I think of it as like a puzzle piece. Like we're having a puzzle, and it's like we're putting people in place, and like where does it go? How does it look? And so it feels as though with Paul and Chernak coming back, it was like, okay, everything seems to be a little fortified. Like, okay. But then now it's like, okay, well, does that piece actually go there? That part, when you do a puzzle and you're like, wait, I don't think that one's actually there. And you rip it out. And you're like, yeah, no, that one doesn't go there.
Yeah. Well, again, the good thing with Nick Paul is it's different than a traditional puzzle piece, right? Nick Paul we've seen him in the top six. We've seen him currently
Swiss Army knife,
centering that quote unquote fourth line, right? He does a little bit of everything, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. And he did just that the other day when he told us he was coming back.
Being that role guy, being that person that's on the bench and trying to give energy where I can. When I go on the ice, trying to change momentum, whether that's block shot, hit, big draw, cycle, goal, you name it. I'm just trying to be that guy that brings momentum to the game.
Block shot, hit, cycle, goal, like he does. He takes pride in every small play, and that's why we've seen him score some big goals last year in the playoffs. We've seen him be that guy offensively because he puts in the work everywhere else. And again, it's good to have Nick Paul back. Knock on wood. Hopefully Zemgus isn't out too long. And you mentioned putting in the work, Julie. I don't know if there's anybody in the NHL who puts in more work than two of the guys here in Tampa Bay, in Nikita Kucherov and John Cooper. They both hit a couple of insane milestones last week.
Oh, what a segue.
Well, we try, right? We try. Nikita Kucherov hit 1,100 points in the same season he hit 1,000 points, right? We just saw that happen this fall.
That's insane.
Yeah, hits 1,100 the same season. He's the fourth fastest player born outside of North America. He did it in his 863rd game. He hit 1,100. Now, his company there, the only people to beat him to it, Peter Stastny, Yari Curry, and Jaromir Jagr. And if you're on a list with those three guys, you're doing something right.
Yeah. It always seems as though like whatever goal is scored, it's like he has been a part of it, right? Like it's always.
And if he's not, they go back and find that he actually did start the play, right? How many times this year have we been like, oh wow, no Nikita Kucherov point, and then they go back and they're like, oh my God, Nikita Kucherov actually kicked his stick, like he made that play happen with this tiny little move, and they go and add an assist because it's all Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah, he's a wizard out there. It's like, and I know that and so many people have kind of talked about the fact that he doesn't get his flowers and he's not sort of put up there, but I saw I reposted it on Instagram, but it was like, everyone talking about McDavid and McKinnon and all these guys. And it's like Nikita Kucherov, like doing everything every game. He's like a video game player. Like he's just he's like jumping over stuff, going through like forests, like doing like avoiding bombs. Like he's doing everything all the time. And I think that he doesn't necessarily always stand out, right? Because he's facilitating so much too. He's also, just as we said, such a great playmaker, getting on the fact that like he can be the second assist. Maybe he's helping with the breakout or something like that. I can imagine, as everyone has seen, he's been pretty frustrated with how things are going right now. I know he likes to set up other guys. I just wish he would shoot more. I know that he's unselfish in that sense. Like I'm just like, I feel like I'm yelling at Thomas Caberlet when I was 10 years old, like, shoot the puck. That's a Toronto reference for nobody who would understand that. That's a niche thing for me. But it's like, I just think he could have even more points. And I know that that's not like what he's going for, but he's just so good that sometimes you're like, just go do it. Just like do the thing. You know, it's okay. I know you make everyone else better, but like sometimes just go do it. You know?
Yeah. And he can, right? Like, and I will say though, how many times, I'm sure you've seen this as well, the amount of times that since I've started with the Lightning, that I've been like, oh, shoot that puck. But then 2 seconds later, he makes a pass that I didn't know anybody in the world could make, and the puck's in the back of the net anyways, right? You're like, oh, you got to take that shot. And then he does some crazy no-look pass behind the back, and it's a wide open to Hagel or Point at the back post for a tap-in goal. And I'm like, that's why you're making that. That's why you're the guy, and I'm not right there, because I didn't even see that possibility.
Points.
Yeah, right.
I think it's so fascinating when the guys can make these just the finesse plays that are so incredible, and they're so in tight, and it's like they've slowed the game down right in front of the net. It's like how, you know, it's moving so fast, and I'm down there in the corner there and watching it, and it's like, I mean, we'd be left in the dust if we even got out there and tried to make one decision. They'd have like 10 in the amount of time. We'd be like, okay, it's like boom, everything's already done. And so Nikita Kucherov is that guy, and he's been, you know what, as we all know, consistently that guy, because I think that's a really big part of it. Is like, can you do it? Great. Can you consistently do it? Yeah, he can, which is amazing. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I have yet to speak with Nikita Kucherov, and Mike Zeisberger asked me from NHL.com, asked me in Toronto, he's like, how many times do you get to speak to Nikita Kucherov? Like, almost as if I get to talk to him every game because he's so good. I was like, never talked to him once in my entire life. And I'm hoping, because it's a practice day, and that's like, you know, that's a good time. Hopefully, likely not. I would like to say hello, at least say hello. My name is Julie Stewart-Binks. And he'd probably be like, yeah, I've got some notes for you. Okay. Which I'd be like, great. Tell me what I'm missing about. That's what I would love to ask him. It's like, and some of these players, it's like, what are we missing about what we're talking about with you guys that you want us to know? Sometimes I like asking them that question too, right? Where it's like, well, I think that like this player deserves this spotlight that hasn't been talked about enough, or like, I think this or this. And it's like, it's great to get their perspective on it.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned Cooch. Obviously, it seems like we could talk about a different milestone, some crazy stat he's setting every game. But Coach John Cooper also hit a number last week. And again, we celebrated Coop's 1,000th game earlier this season with the Lightning. But Coop became the third coach in NHL history to record 700 wins with a single franchise. And the only other coaches that have done it are Al Arbour, and actually the team that the Lightning are chasing right now in the Buffalo Sabres, coached by Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff also has hit 700 wins. He's just a few ahead. I believe he's at 703 now. So he's the only other active coach that has more wins with a single franchise than John Cooper. And I feel like we talk about it all the time. The guy should probably win the Jack Adams this year. I don't know. The fact that he doesn't have one yet is an absolute crime in the NHL. But John Cooper just continues to impress. And what he's done this year with this injury-riddled roster, he's Team Canada's head coach at the Olympics. He doesn't always, you know, he'll be the first guy that doesn't want the flowers or the attention. He gives it to the guys in the room or to his assistant coaches. But just another amazing stats. 700 wins with one team. How many NHL coaches finish their entire career over 5 or 6 teams and don't hit 700 wins? It's remarkable.
I know. And even when I was talking with Bruce Boudreau about him getting to 1,000 games, because Bruce has done it as well, he was like, I mean, he's done it with the same team, as you mentioned. It's like, nobody can do that. And I remember Boudreau was just saying, like, he's the best to ever do it. Like, to be able to have a message still continuously be relevant in the room, or the way that you approach the room and have the guys' attention. Because you know how when teams are not doing well, the coach is the first to go, usually. That's just like, and some teams you'll see around the league, you'll be like, how have they not gotten rid of this coach yet? It's like, that's their trigger. Like, that's the thing they do, sort of, that's the first domino to fall.
The wake-up call, right?
Yeah, because then it's like, have they lost the room? You know, we've seen it. I've been in New York for the last couple of years. There's been a real coaching carousel going on over there. And so the fact that, like, I remember Bruce was saying, it's like, even during the difficult times, and I know that John also spoke about this, like, he's been grateful in the fact that when they have been difficult times, like, he's been given the the trust, the patience from the organization to work it out. And that doesn't always also happen, but they haven't had the same types of difficult times that other places have because he has coached teams well. And I was talking with Luke Shen the other day when I was in Winnipeg, which was great because I had a great hit I was going to use from Luke Shen on John Cooper. And then he didn't play because he was being traded to Buffalo. And then I was like, wait, maybe I could use it in Buffalo because it's about John Cooper. And then he didn't play there. And I was like, damn, Luke Shen. And so he was just, I mean, he was sort of like almost in amazement talking about John. He was just like, he's the best coach like I've ever had. And it's like, he just knows. I was like, so he doesn't yell. Like everyone says he doesn't yell. He's like, oh no, he does not yell. Like he was like, it's like he was talking about, I don't know, like, I don't even know how he was just talking about like, it's like the birth of his child. Like, wow. He's like, he just knows how to say the right thing when, and how to have the most poignant message. Like, he doesn't speak unless there is a purpose to speak. Yeah. And I think having watched some of the Amazon series about some of these different teams and them going in the room, and we've seen a lot of the Winter Classic stuff too, not all coaches are like that. Some of them just like kind of feel the need to yell to sort of like try to get their point across. And then it's just white noise. And I think that when you save your messaging for those moments, like it means more to the players in those times. Like we've seen him yell on the bench because I'm like, I see him yelling at the referees. The referees seem to get a real beating out there, but with the players, sometimes it's, and I think for this right now too, with how things are going, like Luke Shen also said, as we know, sometimes Coop doesn't say anything in the room. Sometimes it's the veterans that say something. And then sometimes it's just, they don't even need to hear a message because they already know it. And when someone tells you something, like, for instance, like say, if I mess up on air and I stumble, like the last thing I want to hear, and I'm be like, yeah, man, I messed up. Okay, I messed that thing up. Last thing you want to hear is from someone being like, hey, you messed that up. And you're like, I know. Okay, yeah, thanks, Tips. I know I messed up. Right. So like, that like the next time you do it, you're not going to do that because you're self-aware of it. So I think that's also probably a lot of the psychology behind John Cooper.
Yeah, he's one of the best to ever do it, if not the best. Like you said, it's insane, and it's great for us. We get to hear him pick apart the game and just dissect it, because every time he talks, I feel like I learn something. So it's always fun.
Yeah, I'd love to watch a game with him. Because also like when he's watching it and he's putting out different line combinations and things are working or things aren't working and they change, and like the way he sees the game, like how are you watching the game? I always find that interesting with either players or coaches, and especially for him, because he's a unique individual in terms of a coach in his career getting to this point. Like the fact that he didn't play means that like he has probably a different way of looking at the game and how he's analyzing it, which clearly is might likely be better than somebody who might just like rely on the fact that they were a player, right?
Yeah, it's remarkable. And with that, congrats to both of those incredible hockey minds. We're going to continue to see their incredible talent here the rest of the season, and hopefully through a long playoff run. We did get some great questions this week on the Blue Line segment. Most of them positive, some not so much, but we understand.
I apologize for not retweeting it. I've been like,
you're good.
All over the map, just not on. It's like, don't look at your phone, right? But like, you got to look at your phone.
Yeah. But you're good. You're good. Again, we got plenty of good questions. So for those of you who are hoping to call in with questions, the number is 813-301-6749. And I don't know if we have had a voicemail this year since the early part of the year. So don't be afraid to call in if you don't have the social media. We definitely appreciate questions in all different forms. But Julie, I'm going to make you answer this first one because you kind of started to get into it earlier. Fantasy football nerd wants to hear someone knowledgeable, that's definitely Julie Stewart-Binks, speak on the good and bad of familiarity and chemistry with your D partner versus lots of depth when you are mixing up pairings trying to find that chemistry. And John Cooper said the other day, it wasn't about any one player or anything, it just was to kind of freshen it up. But I thought it was interesting to hear him say, like, I think these guys can play with different people. So what do you think as far as the good and bad of flipping pairs or maybe staying with something that eventually, quite frankly, might get kind of stale.
Yeah, I think that honestly, you can kind of argue for both different ways, because it's like the good of changing something up is that, like anything, you are also woken up into the fact of like, okay, how am I playing? What kind of player am I? What kind of partner am I? And you are going to have to try to communicate more with your other D partner, where it's like, okay, like you're finding someone new, but like you're trying to work with someone new, and sometimes in that sense that can kind of help you, the introspective side, see where evaluate where I am.
Your brain's active, right? Like you're
brain,
analyzing every moment.
Right. On the flip side, you don't necessarily want to be analyzing every moment, because as sort of a lot of them have been talking about, and this, I was thinking about this, and then I heard sort of, I think it was JJ talking about it, but it's like basically the process and getting back to how you're playing. It's just getting to the fact that the things you're trying to do, make them habits, right? So that, and habits are things that are automatic. You don't have to think about, you're not using your energy. You know, it's like if you wake up every day and you journal for like, what is it? Like, I think it's up to like 60 days basically now. You won't have to think about doing that thing, and then you can use your energy for other things. So if you're sitting there and you're trying to be like, okay, how do me and this guy work well together, you're now like using energy that could be put into the game. That being said, it's I think sometimes like when partners are together for a while, the good part is that like you would maybe think and understand where they're going to go, but then I guess in certain regards then you might overlook the fact that you aren't communicating as much as maybe you were before, and you kind of overlook little details because you think like, oh, maybe that guy's going to go there because he usually does, and then like what if he doesn't, and then you're beat off the rush. And I think that it's almost like a relationship too. Sometimes like you're dating someone for a really long time, you're like whatever, this is fine, but you're like, is it great? Like, is this the best thing that could possibly be right now? And it's and you're just comfortable. Because there's that certain aspect of like, well, it's not bad, it's just comfortable and it's okay. And for D pairings, like, but what if we could shake this up, put guys together, and you never know who's going to be good unless you try it, right? Like, I think that's such a big aspect of a lot of these things is like, well, how would we have known that these different players play well together unless we try it out? And when things aren't going well, that I guess is a good time to do that. So that's just, what do you think? I mean, that's just sort of my... Yeah,
I think so too. Like the good news about this team too is they've got guys that can play on both sides, right? Like we've seen JJ Moser this season on the left and on the right. We've seen Emil Lilleberg, who, by the way, is back on the ice. We saw him in a red non-contact wearing the bubble, but we've seen him on the left and the right? Like it's some of the guys that I don't know you would necessarily think of that can go out and play on either side, but they've been good. And I think that helps if you've got a guy who even on his offhand is breaking pucks out on that offhand. They're getting more comfortable doing that. So God forbid if the playoffs come and there is an injury, you have that knowledge and just that comfort, right, that you just talked about, that if something happens and we have to make a change in the middle of a playoff game, the morning of a playoff game, there's multiple guys that can kind of step in and play on either side. And I think that's a big deal, right? Like,
right.
I think it's a huge deal.
And to your point on that, like if you have that knowledge heading into the playoffs, like, oh, okay, we did play together in the regular season before, or like,
yeah,
and maybe during the regular season, who knows if it went good or if it went badly, but you know that it's, you know what you're getting when you end up having to play with someone. And I also think that, you know, there's the figuring out of like the guys that are the stay-at-home defensemen and the guys that are going to jump up in the rush. And we're also seeing like Charles-Edouard Destu being, I mean, really just flourishing in so many different ways. And
scored
I think
at the back post the other day, jumped up in there and scored at the net.
Right. And it's interesting to see how he's also sort of become, in a way, on the defensive side. And also, I mean, he had to jump up into being a forward the other day, but then Moser went out and he went back to defense. This is in Winnipeg. But he's kind of like a Nick Paul in a way, like defensively. And he seems to be so unfazed by anything. Like he has just so much poise. Rob Zettler told us that the other day. He's just a guy that, you know, he gets into a fight and he's just back on the bench like, well, I got into a fight, whatever, you know, like he's just very even keeled. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. I think that honestly, if so much can be changed if you start to see some of the good habits early, like scoring early. Like if the team can score early or and also not allow a goal early, like, I mean, just does so much for the entire tone of the game, right? And then that can influence so many decision-making processes down the road. Like just because I'm not a coach and I'm also not a player, but it's like everything is about what decision you make in what moment. And I think we've heard Cooper say, like, it's not about, it's the whole thing is about moments that lead to the big moment. Like every little thing, like execute on the face-off, keep the puck, like breaking the puck out, like little check marks will lead to a goal or lead to the ultimate goal. And I like that in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. TB80 has the next question for us. And Julie, I don't think this would have been when you were here yet, because I believe it was after the start of the season when the team wasn't off to the greatest start. But TB80 wants to know if we think it's time for Paul Kennedy and Braden Coburn to burn another stick in Thunder Alley. I'm sure you've seen this clip, right? Because I think they've shown it on the broadcast. Yeah. I'm going to say yes, just because I want to see it again. And the magic that came after the burning of that stick was remarkable, right? I think that was right before the 11-game win streak. Mm-hmm. So, hey, I was a little nervous for PK when it happened. I was like, oh my God, please don't light PK on fire. But it worked, and they got a lot of credit for that. So if that's what it takes to get back to playing the hockey we saw before, I think I'm down for it. I like the idea, TB80.
Well, okay, I'm going to say I like the idea. I would say that was pretty dangerous.
That's what I said. I was nervous for PK.
I talked to Kobe
it's
about it in depth the other day. I was like, okay, so like, take me through this. And, they just had a bucket of water there. I was like, okay, like you were lucky that nothing happened in that sense. So I saw it. I saw the flames and I'm like, what? I'm also like, why is PK in it? I understand some of the other things. What I was thinking was along the lines of this type of thing. I think we're lucky nothing happened because not to be risk averse, but to just be smart, is that could have gone real bad real fast, and it didn't, and thank God. But I like the idea of doing something like that. And I suggested we get in like a shaman, basically, because that's someone that can get rid of any kind of bad juju, any bad energy, and like someone who's real in it, not just like bringing in a sage thingy, but like a real person in that regard. So I think something of the sort would be good, but
you don't want to light anybody on fire?
I also just don't understand why PK is like in the middle of this. It's like, wait, we can let's sacrifice something else in there that's not a person.
Though? That's PK. He loves that. He's down for anything if it means getting some more wins, and it worked. So that's why PK is a legend around here. The guy.
Okay, let's not glorify somebody putting themselves up to be, whatever, sacrificial lamb for the team. All right, because he will then, if we're saying let's do it, like PK then will do some stupid idea that we come up with because we want the team to win, and I just want PK to be okay. I don't want PK to be in the middle of the sacrifice.
Nobody tops PK. He's the best. He's the best. Also the best, Julie. I did not have any this week, but our good friends at Penelope Bourbon make all of this possible. And this season, Penelope Bourbon, we do have some right here, of course, we always do, is a proud partner of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's whether you're cheering at Benchmark International Arena or you're raising a glass at home. Penelope brings fans together. That's one pour, one moment, one win at a time. And you can find Penelope Bourbon at Publix or right here at Benchmark International Arena. And they say, go Bolts. And so do we. So thank you to Penelope Bourbon. And with that, Julie, we will close with our plus minus segment. So what is your plus this week?
Plus is Gage Gonçalves coming back in.
I like it.
Being so effective, picking up right where he left off with this line that is when they came back from the Olympic break, really, really crushing it. And I remember we were in the locker room the other day. We were joking with him, like, you got on the end of Braden points 2 goals. And I think maybe it was Nick Paul that said something like, you know, you didn't really like score them. You just kind of got on the end of them. And he's like, however it goes in, like, you know.
Well, Gonsalves said too. He was like, I got to get one with my stick.
Yeah,
He's like, I got one off my foot, one off my butt, one off my body. Like I got to score one of these with my stick one of these times. But Gonzo has career highs now in goals, assists, points, plus minus, PIMs. He's having a great year.
Yeah, that's definitely my plus right now. I
like it. That's a good plus. My plus this week is going to be, I had the opportunity to talk with Steven Santini's family last week because his 6-year-old son, Chase, got to watch his father play in the NHL for the first time. It was kind of on a whim thing. They love Syracuse, and they found out Dad was coming up to play in the NHL, and they booked a flight, him and his mom. And Chase got to see his dad play in the NHL for the first time. He also got a very good-looking dessert from the arena. He was very excited about that as well. But it was a lot of fun getting to talk to Chase about what it was like seeing his dad play. Chase is just starting to play hockey himself, which was pretty cool to hear. And talking to Steven about it afterwards, you could tell how proud he was of his son. And Chase was pretty proud of his dad, too. So that story's on the Lightning website. You can check that out. But one of those days that, you love to hear the stories behind these players and hearing the Syracuse Crunch captain and how he enjoys just sharing the game with his son. Like you mentioned, Chase is 6 years old and he goes to probably 25 games a year in Syracuse. And now we got to see his dad play in the NHL. So a pretty special moment. And it was so fun just talking to Chase about what he likes the most. And it was so great. For a 6-year-old, I was very impressed. He was very good at the interview. So shout out to Chase and the Santini family. It was a pretty cool moment. Julie, my minus is, I'm very passionate about my minus this week. So I'm going to let you give your minus first while I try to sell
you go first.
Okay. All right, fine. You're going to get me riled up here. My minus is parking. And I feel like every year on the podcast at one point, I have this minus. But this morning, I drove around a parking garage that I have a pass for, that I have to pay monthly for to make sure that I have a spot. I drove around for like 35 minutes in this garage looking for a spot. Nothing. And there's somebody standing outside the garage that's like counting cars to let you in. And there's an arrow obviously going both ways of where you can drive. And people have just started to park like on the arrows. So now it's a one way. You can only fit one car through.
What is this?
They're still letting cars in. So they've packed all the spaces. Now the cars are adding spaces on the ends of the rows so that you can only get one car through at a time. And the people at the front gate are still letting people in the garage. And I was like, so they let me in. And normally they'll be like, hey, sorry, we're full. You can't come in. They let me in this morning so I could drive around 6 floors of a parking garage for 30 minutes. And I was losing my mind. I was like, I walked out and when I drove back out of the gate, the person that let me into this overfull garage had the guts to wave at me, like, have a good day. And I was like, you just watched me. You just let me through. I was losing my mind. So then I had to go to a different garage, and I paid $18 to park today downtown for 6 hours when I have a monthly payment to have a supposed spot to park. And I'm going to stop now before my blood pressure hits an unhealthy number. But wow, was I riled up this morning coming to work.
I don't think I've ever seen you more riled up about anything in
I was rattled.
Life.
I texted my wife in all caps, and all it said was, I'm rattled. I was rattled.
It's like, I don't understand the parking attendant, like, letting you in and then all these things happening. And it's like, no, just, there is no spots.
I am normally a fairly calm person, especially like around other people. The wave, I thought I was going to have to throw something out my window. Like the wave goodbye, I'm like, you knew that it was full. You're enjoying this way too much right now. So,
yeah, they're like, that guy, haha. Maybe they're also having a really hard time. They're like, this is the one thing that brings us joy is to just see this. Like,
and I feel bad for them because I'm sure they get chewed out quite a bit working at a parking garage. I'm sure it's not always a glamorous job.
But I can't imagine a lot of people being like, I had a great time at this parking garage here today. Yeah, that's a tough one.
So that's my minus. And it is a very passionate minus. I hope yours is not as bad as your morning wasn't as bad as mine. What is your minus today?
I mean, I guess like my minus was if we're going into this kind of realm was I was trying to get out of my like apartment yesterday with all my luggage, and it's a Sunday in Tampa and people are going to there's a pool I have not been to yet. It's the apartment I'm at, and it's like everyone's going to the pool, and there's just so many people and there's like one elevator working, and I'm like, I gotta get downstairs now, or else I'm like gonna get fired if I don't make this flight in time. And there's one elevator, there's like a little bit enough room for like me and my suitcase to get in. And these three girls just like just cut me off and go in. And I was like, really? I want to just drop the mitts, being like, are you kidding me? You just cut me in line for an elevator that I've also been waiting for. I was like, is there no elevators working? It was like 15 minutes, it felt like. And I was so mad. I just grabbed my bags and I literally
just forced your way in?
No, I went down the fire escape and I was like, clang, 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 clang. Like literally 10 flights, like, well, it was 5. But it was like so many different stairs. I was like, I don't care if I break these suitcases. I was like, I'm getting out of here right now. And then I ran to, thankfully, my like Uber driver. I told him, I was like, the elevator, blah, blah. He's like, waited, thank God. And I'm like, hi, sir, can you please, as safely as possible, but quickly as possible, get me to this place where the plane is? Because if not, trust me, you ain't going on that plane if you are and so that was, I just think like elevator etiquette is something. Also, you have to wait for people to get off the elevator before you get on. It's amazing how many people don't understand that concept. Don't get on the elevator if you see people trying to get off of it. Like, hello.
Okay, Julie, so that was pretty close to as passionate as my minus. I don't know. You got. I'll tell you that was a pretty good minus. You got pretty worked up there.
The video of me going down the stairs with my suitcases, just like literally chucking them like I'm like someone working like for when people just throw your bags onto like the plane or something, taking them off. Like that's what I was like with my suitcases.
Okay, well, I hope that when I get to this parking garage that I angrily paid for this morning, that the elevator is empty so I don't have to deal with this. And hopefully, Julie, the next time I see you, the Lightning will have accomplished the great John Cooper feat of more points than games on this upcoming road trip. There's 4 of them coming up. We'll see it start on Tuesday in Seattle, and then the Lightning head out to Canada, the land of Julie Stewart-Binks, to close out the road trip.
Now,
so
I'm an American now, folks.
True, that's true.
I'm both. So I can celebrate whatever I want in whatever way I want.
Whichever
yeah,
Independence Day,
we're triple gold medalists now. Congratulations to USA
Let's go.
sled hockey team.
Yeah, Paralympics. It was great. And I hope this week is great too. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Into the Blue, presented by Penelope Bourbon. We will talk to you guys.